Hi everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. Let me ask you a question. What if the thing that feels safest right now is actually the most dangerous place you could be? Your comfort zone, that predictable little bubble where you avoid risk, avoid rejection, avoid failure. That zone is not a sanctuary. It's a cage. And worsening, it's a slow death trap for your God-given potential. See, comfort is not your friend. It's your enabler. Comfort will rock you to sleep while your purpose dies of starvation. You think you're protecting your peace, but what you're really doing is preserving your prison. Why do you think miracles never happen in the middle of mediocrity? Because God doesn't move until you. Abraham didn't get the blessing until he left home. Peter didn't walk on water until he stepped out of the boat. Faith doesn't activate in the familiar. It ignites in the unknown. You keep praying for increase, but you're unwilling to endure the inconvenience that comes with increase. You want growth without growing pains. You want elevation without excavation. But there is no resurrection without a crucifixion. And your comfort zone is trying to keep your potential from ever getting to the cross. Now here, Meng, your next level is on the other side of your last excuse. You can't conquer what you keep cuddling. You say, I don't have time. Lie. You make time for Netflix. You say, I'm not ready. Lie. You're just afraid to be seen starting small. You say, what if I fail? But what if you don't move? And you succeed at staying stuck. See, comfort feels good, but it produces nothing. And God doesn't reward feeling. He rewards faith. Faith is action when logic says no. Faith is motion before motivation shows up. Faith is sowing when you can't see the harvest. I'm telling you, the greatest danger to your destiny is not failure. It's comfort. It's staying in the boat while your calling is out on the waves. So if you're waiting for the right time, now, if you're waiting to feel ready, stop. You're not supposed to feel ready. You're supposed to obey. You're supposed to move. Because the blessing doesn't meet you where you're comfortable. It meets you where you're called. Let's go. Comfort is the coffin of calling. It's where dreams go to die, not because they weren't possible, but because they weren't pursued. Most people live their entire lives in a small circle of what feels good, what feels safe, what's predictable. And in doing so, they sacrifice their destiny on the altar of convenience. But here's the truth on what feels good now is often the very thing stopping you from becoming who you were created to be. The comfort zone is seductive. It tells you, stay here. You know this? Don't risk stretch. Don't reach too far. And if you listen long enough, that voice becomes your identity. But the danger is that comfort doesn't ask you to grow. Comfort never demands sacrifice. Comfort never requires discipline. It only asks that you stay the same. But you weren't born to stay the same. You were born to multiply, to expand, to elevate. Your calling demands movement, faith, and sometimes even pain. You don't get to your purpose by staying in a place of ease. Think about it. A seed doesn't grow unless it's buried in the bark and broke open. A butterfly doesn't fly unless it first struggles in the cocoon. That process is uncomfortable, but necessary. The same is true for you. The discomfort you're avoiding might be the very pressure God is using to promote you. So when you avoid that difficult conversation, when you say no to launching that business, when you delay writing that book, not because you can't, because it makes you uncomfortable. You're choosing the coffin over the calling. You're embalming your potential with procrastination. That thing God put in your spirit, that vision, that idea, that pull towards something greater, it's suffocating inside your comfort zone. You don't need more motivation. You need movement. The enemy of your purpose isn't fear. It's familiarity. You keep returning to what's known, but purpose is found in the unknown. Your comfort zone wants to pacify you into mediocrity, but your calling wants to provoke you into greatness. Break out. Lean in, move, even if your voice shakes. That comfort you're clinging to, it's not your protector. It's your prison. Let it go before it becomes the graveyard of your gift. If you're living in familiarity, you're probably not living in faith. See, the problem with most people is they think faith is about believing something mentally, but real faith is about moving when it doesn't make sense. It's about stepping when there's no staircase. You cannot grow your faith in places where everything makes sense and everything feels safe. Familiarity is the breeding ground for stagnation. And stagnation, over time, starts to feel like peace. But it's counterfeit. It's not peace. It's just the absence of challenge. And the absence of challenge is the absence of change. Faith doesn't even activate until you're beyond what you can control. God doesn't need you to trust him when you're still leaning on your own understanding. He doesn't need you to pray for boldness when you never step into anything that requires it. If your life feels manageable, you're probably managing it on your own, and you've stopped relying on divine help. That's a dangerous place to be. Not because bad things are happening, but because nothing is happening. No risk, no revelation, no step, no stretching, no transformation. Let me give it to you straight. If you're still in the place where you know what's coming next, where the outcomes are predictable, where the people around you never challenge you to level up, that's not growth. That's maintenance. And God did not put you on this earth to maintain. He put you here to multiply, to influence, to dominate in your assignment. But the enemy of that calling is your love for comfort. And the moment you fall in love with comfort, you stop walking by faith. Faith thrives in unfamiliar territory. It requires you to wake up not knowing exactly how, but still saying yes. It means showing up when there's no applause, sowing when there's no promise of a return, believing when there's no evidence yet. That's the kind of faith that pleases God. Not the, I'll move when I understand, kind, but the, I'll move because you said go kind. You cannot obey God and stay in the same place. So if your environment doesn't stretch you, if your routines never make you sweat, and if your dreams don't scare you even a little, then it's time to leave familiarity behind. Your future demands it. Discomfort is not a punishment, it's preparation. A lot of people misinterpret adversity as a sign to turn back, when in reality, it's often the confirmation that you're headed in the right direction. God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. And the qualifying process, that's where the discomfort comes in. That's where the stretching happens. That's where the anointing is forged. You don't grow in the palace. You grow in the wilderness. You don't become who you're called to be in convenience. You become that person in confrontation. With your fears, your doubts, your laziness, and your limiting beliefs. Look at anyone who's ever stepped into greatness, and I guarantee they were forged in fire. Joseph had to go through a pit and a prison before he made it to the palace. David had to face lions, bears, and a giant before he ever wore a crown. Even Jesus spent time in the wilderness before stepping into ministry. Why? Because discomfort is the classroom where destiny gets taught. It's where God tests your character, your consistency, your capacity. It's not about breaking you, it's about building you. We want the promise, but we resist the process. But the process is where the promise becomes possible. If God gave you the next level without preparation, it would crush you. So he lets you through some things, not to destroy you, but to develop the version of you that can handle the blessing you've been praying for. That pressure you're feeling right now, that's not punishment. That's proof that something valuable is being produced in you. You don't need less discomfort. You need a new perspective. Stop asking God to make it easier. Start asking him to make you stronger. Stop praying for relief and start praying for revelation. Because once you understand that discomfort is divine, you'll stop resisting it and start embracing it. You'll realize that every challenge is a setup for capacity. Every delay is a setup for discipline. Every setback is a setup for strategy. The breaking is where the blessing begins. Discomfort doesn't mean you're off track. It might mean you're finally on it. You can't conquer what you cuddle. That's a hard truth, but it's one you need to receive if you're serious about walking in purpose. See, too many people pet their problems and then wonder why they grow into giants. You keep nursing your limitations, justifying them, protecting them, even defending them, instead of killing them. You talk about your past trauma, your fear of failure, your lack of support, your lack of money. And all those things might be real, but they don't have to be the ruler of your reality unless you let them. What you tolerate, you give permission to stay. And when you start calling your limitations just who I am, you give them a home in your destiny. But let me tell you something. Your identity is not in your issue. Your identity is in your GUBU assignment. Your identity is in what God has called of you to, not what life has thrown at you. But you can't walk in that calling as long as you're still holding hands with your excuses. Most people never step into greatness because they've built a relationship with their limitations. They've made excuses part of their personality. I'm just shy. I'm not good with money. I don't know how to sell. I'm not a people person. No, you just haven't challenged yourself to become more than your current condition. You've gotten so familiar with the comfort of not trying that trying now feels like pain. But here's the truth: the pain of progress is far less than the regret of potential wasted. You don't need more time. You don't need more clarity. You don't even need more resources. You need to stop making room in your life for what's been limiting you. If it doesn't grow you, stretch you, or elevate you, it shouldn't have that much access to you. Let me say it like this: you will never dominate what you refuse to confront. And as long as you're still cuddling your excuses, your limitations will keep you captive. Kill the excuse. Starve the fear. Fire the version of you that keeps settling for less. And when you do, you'll realize the giant you were so afraid of was only alive because you kept feeding it. Wealth follows wisdom in motion. That's not just a catchy phrase. That's a law. See, the world is full of people who are smart but stucco. They've got degrees, certifications, books on the shelf, notebooks full of ideas, and they're broke. Why? Because wisdom that isn't moving is just information sitting in neutral. God didn't give you insight so you could store it. He gave it so you could have stored it. And stewardship means movement. You can't multiply what you never activate. The parable of the talents proves it. The servant who buried what he had, who played it safe, got nothing but judgment. But the ones who were usually what they had, who have put it to work, they got increase. That's divine economics. You don't get more because you know more. You get more because you adol more with what you already know. You don't attract wealth by sitting still. You attract it by becoming someone who moves on wisdom. Some people pray for miracles, but they won't get up and build. They're waiting for a sign when God is waiting for a step. You don't need another confirmation. You don't need another course. You need a decision. Because motion is the proof of belief. You say you believe in abundance. Are your actions aligned with that belief? You say you trust God for overflow, but are you taking the kind of bold action that shows you're ready for it? Every successful entrepreneur, every impactful leader, every wealthy person of purpose, they all share one trait and they act. Not perfectly, not always with full clarity, but decisively. They understand that clarity comes in the doing, not in the delaying. Wisdom speaks and they respond. They don't debate with their destiny. You can't build wealth if you're allergic to risk. You can't walk in purpose if you're addicted to safety. And you can't reach your potential while sitting on your potential. Move. Apply what you already know, because motion attracts momentum. And momentum attracts miracles. Wisdom without motion is wasted. But when you start acting on what you've been taught, when you take what God gave you and put it into the earth with intention, that's when heaven responds. That's when doors open. That's when the flow starts. Wealth follows wisdom. In motion. Growth begins at go. That's not just a catchy phrase. It's a divine principle. Most people are waiting for clarity, waiting for confirmation, waiting for confidence. But the truth is, nothing grows until you move. Potential doesn't develop in stillness. It activates in motion. You don't get more power, more provision, or more purpose by standing still and thinking about it. You get it by stepping forward. Too many people have confused planning with progress. You've been making vision boards, writing in journals, watching motivational videos. But let me ask you something. When was the last time you actually moved? Because planning without action is procrastination in disguise. You don't need another strategy session. You need obedience. You need execution. We serve a God who meets people in movement. David didn't defeat Goliath from the sidelines. He ran toward the giant. The Red Sea didn't part while the Israelites stood wondering. It split when Moses stretched out his hand. You don't need to know every detail before you step. Faith is walking into what you cannot see, knowing that God already made the way. The enemy will always try to paralyze you with perfection. He'll whisper, "You're not ready. What if you mess it up? What will people say?" But here's the truth: in your calling doesn't require perfection. It requires participation. You don't grow by sitting back and analyzing every possible outcome. You grow by going, by doing, by obeying even when it doesn't make full sense. Don't confuse comfort for peace. Peace comes when you're aligned with your purpose, and purpose requires pursuit. The more you delay, the more dormant your potential becomes. Some of you are praying for open doors while refusing to walk down the hallway. But God gives direction to those who are in motion. That idea you've been sitting on, that dream you've been delaying, it's not going to flourish in your head. It flourishes in your hands when you take the first step. So stop waiting for a sign. You are the sign. Stop waiting for conditions to be perfect. Just go. Growth begins the moment you do, not the moment you know. Your go is the trigger for God's grow. And if you're still waiting, ask yourself, what is fear costing me that faith could have already paid for? So here's the bottom line: in your comfort zone has lied to you. It told you that safety was success. It told you that ease was peace. But your purpose was never meant to be painless. It was meant to be powerful. And power doesn't show up when you sit. It shows up when you step. You've got something the world needs to see, but it'll never be seen until you move. The dream, the business, the breakthrough, it's not waiting on God. It's waiting on you. So get uncomfortable. Do it scared. Take the leap. Say yes to your calling, because your next level is already prepared. You just have to show up for it. Now go. Don't just be inspired. Be in motion. Don't just hear this. Do something with it. Because the only thing worse than failure is staying the same. Let's build. Let's grow. Let's go.